was a young boy of about 10 years old. He lived in a small house on the edge of a peaceful town with his father, Tom, and his stepmother, Clara. The house was warm and cozy, filled with the sounds of everyday life. But there was something missing. Elliot's mother had passed away when he was just a baby, and all he had left of her was a small toy bear named Charlie. Charlie was a special bear given to Elliot by his mother. It was soft and cuddly, with brown fur and bright button eyes. His mother had told him it would always remind him of her, and Elliot loved it dearly. Whenever he was sad or lonely, Charlie was there to comfort him, keeping the memory of his mother alive. Tom, Elliot's father, worked very hard in the fields, planting crops and fixing things around the house. He loved Elliot dearly, but was always busy with work. He didn't always see how lonely Elliot felt, especially when Clara, his new wife, treated Elliot differently than her own daughter, Mia. Clara was cold and distant with Elliot. She often told him to do the hardest chores, while Mia, her baby, was allowed to do whatever she wanted. Though Clara smiled and acted kind in front of Tom, Elliot could tell she didn't like him. She didn't care about his feelings, and often made him feel like an outsider in his own home. Even though he tried to be a good son, nothing ever seemed to please Clara. She would complain about the smallest things and never offered a kind word to Elliot. Mia, Clara's little daughter, was too young to understand what was going on. She was just a baby, giggling and playing with her toys, but she didn't see how her mother treated Elliot. Elliot wished things could be different. He wished Clara could be kind like his mother had been. But each day, he felt more alone, more distant from everyone around him. Over time, Clara's attitude toward Elliot grew colder. She would order him to clean the house, wash the dishes, and even take care of the animals. Mia, on the other hand, would sit with Clara, playing with her toys and smiling. The difference between how Clara treated her daughter and how she treated Elliot was clear to anyone who looked. Clara didn't like how much Elliot reminded her of his mother. She knew Tom had loved his late wife dearly, and that made Clara feel like she was always in second place. It hurt her that Tom would never look at her the same way he had looked at his first wife. So, Clara took out her frustration on Elliot, hoping that if he was miserable enough, he might leave. Elliot tried to ignore it. He did his chores, cleaned the house, and helped his father as much as he could. But there was no escaping the sadness that filled him. He missed his mother so much. Charlie, the little bear, was the only thing that made him feel close to her. Whenever he hugged Charlie, he could almost feel his mother's love again. But Clara couldn't understand this. To her, Charlie was just an old toy. She often told Elliot He was too old to have such a thing. "You're not a little baby anymore," she would say. "Grow up, Elliot." Tom didn't see what was happening. He was always busy working in the fields, and by the time he came home, Clara had already taken control of the house. He thought everything was fine, but Elliot knew better. He felt alone in his own home, and the only comfort he had was his toy bear. One day, Elliot woke up to find that Charlie was missing. He searched the house, looking under the bed, in the closet, and even in the kitchen, but the little bear was nowhere to be found. He felt his heart sink. Where could Charlie have gone? He ran to his stepmother. "Clara, have you seen my bear?" he asked, his voice trembling. Clara looked at him with a blank expression. "No, I haven't seen it," she replied coldly. Elliot felt something was wrong. Charlie was never lost. He always knew where it was, but now it was gone. Clara's reaction seemed strange, and Elliot grew suspicious. Maybe Clara had something to do with it. Clara didn't seem to care. She went about her day, as if it was no big deal. But for Elliot, it was everything. Without Charlie, he felt more alone than ever. Days passed, and Elliot could not stop thinking about his bear. He tried to focus on other things, like his father's work or playing outside, but nothing made him forget the empty space where Charlie had once been. Each time he thought of his mother, he felt that terrible ache in his chest. Without Charlie, he felt like he was losing his connection to her. One afternoon, while Clara was talking to a friend, Elliot overheard something that made his stomach turn. Clara was laughing and saying, "That old bear was just taking up space. I threw it out. It was time for Elliot to grow up." Elliot's heart shattered. Clara had thrown away his bear. His most precious memory of his mother was gone, just like that. He felt sick, like he had been betrayed by the one person he should have trusted. Clara had not only taken his bear, but she had also taken a part of his heart. Days passed since Elliot overheard Clara talking about throwing away Charlie. The sadness in his heart grew heavier, and he could hardly focus on anything else. He missed his bear so much. It wasn't just a toy. It was the last thing he had from his mother. Without it, he felt even more lost. Every morning, Elliot would go to his room and search for Charlie, hoping that somehow the bear would reappear. But every time, he was met with empty shelves. His room seemed lonelier now, with only the dusty old furniture and the silence of the house around him. One evening, as Elliot sat on his bed staring at the spot where Charlie used to sit, he heard the sound of Clara's voice from downstairs. She was talking to a friend on the porch. Normally, Elliot would ignore her conversations, but this time, something made him listen. He could hear Clara laughing, and her words made his blood run cold. It was just an old bear. It was cluttering up the house, and Elliot needed to grow up anyway. Elliot's heart sank. Clara had done it on purpose. She hadn't just misplaced the bear, she had thrown it away. His most treasured memory of his mother was gone because Clara didn't care. He felt so small, so helpless. The pain of losing Charlie was unbearable, but something in Elliot snapped. He couldn't let this go. He had to find his bear. It was the only thing left from his mother. It meant everything to him. The next morning, while Tom was out working in the fields, Elliot decided to take action. He was going to find Charlie, no matter what. He wasn't sure where to start, but he knew one thing. He couldn't stay in this house and do nothing. That same day, after his long search, Tom returned home with a surprise for Elliot. He had brought him a new toy, a model train set. It was a thoughtful gift, and Tom smiled proudly as he handed it to his son. "Here you go, son. I thought you might like this. It's a gift for you." Elliot took the toy in his hands, but the joy he should have felt was missing. He smiled weakly at his father, thanking him for the present. The train set was nice, but it wasn't Charlie. It couldn't replace the comfort he felt from holding the bear close. It didn't have the memories attached to it that Charlie had. Tom seemed pleased, but Elliot's heart wasn't in it. He felt guilty for not being able to appreciate his father's kindness. But how could he when he was so heartbroken over the loss of Charlie? The train set was fun, but it could never give him the same sense of love and security that Charlie had. That evening, after playing with the train set for a while, Elliot sat quietly in his room, staring out of the window. He missed his mother, and now he missed Charlie. The bear was more than just a toy. It was a connection to his mother's love. Without it, he felt alone in the world. Days passed, and Elliot's sadness didn't fade. His new toy train set couldn't fill the emptiness he felt. One afternoon, while walking to the local store with his father, Elliot saw something that made his heart skip a beat. The store was a second-hand shop that sold old things: clothes, books, toys. Elliot didn't usually go there, but as he passed by the window, he saw something familiar sitting on a dusty shelf. It was Charlie. His heart raced as he recognized the little bear. There it was, right in front of him. It was covered in dust, its fur a little faded, but it was still Charlie. Elliot rushed into the store without thinking. The bell above the door jingled as he entered, and the shopkeeper gave him a curious look. "Can I help you?" she asked. Elliot nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm looking for that bear on the shelf." The shopkeeper smiled and pointed. "That one? It's for sale. Would you like to buy it?" Elliot could hardly believe his eyes. There was Charlie, right there. But it didn't feel the same anymore. The bear seemed so distant now, so different. It wasn't just the dust. It was the way it had been taken from him. The love that had once filled Charlie seemed to have faded along with the memories. Still, Elliot reached out and hugged the bear tightly. For a moment, he could almost feel his mother's arms around him again. But it was short-lived. The bear wasn't magic. It couldn't bring back the love and comfort he had lost. It reminded him of all the pain he had gone through, of Clara's cruelty. Elliot felt conflicted. He was glad to have found Charlie, but the sadness lingered. The bear was not the same anymore, and neither was he. After finding Charlie, Elliot knew he had to do something about it. He couldn't let Clara's actions slide. He had to confront her, even if it meant facing his deepest fears. But what could he say to her? She had already shown how little she cared for him. That evening, when Tom was busy with his work, Elliot gathered his courage and walked to Clara. His hands trembled, and his heart beat loudly in his chest, but he couldn't wait any longer. He had to speak up. "Clara," he said, his voice shaking, "why did you throw away my bear? It was the only thing I had left from my mother." Clara looked at him with cold eyes, as if she were hearing nothing more than a child's complaint. She didn't apologize or show any remorse. "You're too old for that silly thing," she said. "It's just a bear. You need to let go of these childish things." Elliot's heart burned with anger. How could she be so heartless? Charlie was not just a bear to me. It was a memory of my mother, and you took that from me. Clara didn't answer. She just turned away, not even looking him in the eye. Elliot felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, but he held them back. He had to be strong. He couldn't let her hurt him anymore. He didn't need her approval or her love. He only needed his father to see the truth. The next morning, after a long and sleepless night, Tom came to Elliot with a solemn expression. He had overheard the conversation between his son and Clara. His heart sank as he realized the truth of what had been happening in his house. Tom took a deep breath and sat next to Elliot. "Son," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea how cruel Clara was to you. I should have seen it." Elliot nodded, feeling both relieved and sad. It was good to know his father finally understood, but it also hurt that it had taken so long. The days that followed were different. Tom finally stood up to Clara, telling her that she could no longer stay in their home if she didn't treat Elliot with respect. Clara, angry and embarrassed, packed her things and left. The house was quiet again. Elliot's heart felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone. His father was there for him, and together they began to rebuild their family. Tom promised Elliot that he would always protect him and make sure he felt loved, just like his mother would have wanted. And while Charlie was still a little different now, it no longer mattered as much. The love of his father was enough to fill the empty places in his heart. Elliot smiled, feeling the warmth of his father's love. Slowly, things began to heal. With Clara gone, the house was peaceful again. And though the loss of his mother would always hurt, Elliot now knew that love from those who truly cared for him could heal any wound. Elliot kept Charlie by his side, but now it was more of a symbol of the love he had from his father. Together, they were a family again,